quite frankly, I do not believe we have the talent, the techniques, or even the will to try and take them on. I think that in North America, Tesla may take a fairly large chunk. It'll be a little less now, thank goodness, that Toyota fired Toyota and put in, I think Sako is his name, Sako-san.
Sato,
and,
yeah.
And I met him a long time ago. He probably doesn't remember me, but I remember him. He's a smart guy, and he understands business, and he's also an engineer. So I think that he's going to make a big difference, and I believe he's going to spin the Toyota boat around.
So are you suggesting that you think that Toyota has a better chance than the other two? I mean,
I know it now. Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding?
Is Sandy Munro wrong? Is Toyota going to make it? Do they stand a better chance of surviving the transition to a fully electric future than other legacy automotive manufacturers? The gloves are off. This one is going to be good. P.S. Just dropped an exclusive video on Patreon regarding Ford, who surprisingly are making all the right moves when it comes to the transition to EVs. If you're not a member, you can join with the card in the corner or the link at the pinned comment. So first, some comments from Sandy Munro and Corey as they discuss whether or not Toyota can not only survive the transition to EVs, but how successful they may or may not be. An important piece of context, of course, just a month or two ago, Toyota have officially shit-canned their previously truly incompetent president/CEO, who just so happens to be the grandson of the person who founded Toyota. Now, if this doesn't raise a red flag, let me just ask a question. Of all 8 billion or so human beings on Earth, what are the odds that it just so happens that the grandson of the person who founded the company is also the most competent person, the most suitable person to be running the company? I'd say about 1 in 8 billion. So thankfully, Toyota have seen the light. They've recently shit-canned this incompetent moron who unquestionably was steering the Titanic directly toward an iceberg. I spent the last 3+ years ripping on this moron, both privately on Patreon and publicly here on YouTube. So Toyota has made the right move. The question is it too little, too late? After the comments from Sandy and Corey, we have a big update, some news coming out of Toyota, which gives me the impression that the faith that Sandy Munro is putting in Toyota may be ill-founded.
By the way, there are other car companies that you should know about that do have vertical integration, and on top of that, they look at a team in a slightly different way, and they all live in China. That is a problem for all North American car companies.
Absolutely agree. Make no mistake, there will be a tsunami of very compelling economical EVs invading the United States and Europe. What happens to the automotive manufacturers locally in Europe and the United States as these much more affordable, fairly compelling, quite decent, relatively safe EVs start flooding in from China? They steal market share from the local automotive manufacturers. For the last 15 years, just about every car company on Earth ignored the rise of EVs, ignored the data, ignored the predictably declining cost curves, especially on batteries. They ignored everything. Not in China. In China, a combination of government incentives, very strong incentives in many cases, has pushed companies and pushed the EV industry ahead. We're now at a point where EVs are a commercial inevitability, but this wasn't always the case. This means the Chinese EV manufacturing market is far more mature than anywhere else on Earth. Tesla is a rare exception outside of China. It's only now the penny has just dropped for legacy automotive manufacturers in the United States and in Europe. These EVs are actually happening. I guess we better start trying to try and make some. But here's the problem. Many Chinese companies have already nailed it. And don't get me wrong, they won't be competing directly with Tesla. Tesla's just too good. Tesla is the Apple of the EV world. Let's just leave it at that. But there is a huge opportunity to produce electric vehicles with razor-thin margins in China, to export those into the United States and into Europe and steal market share away from incompetent legacy automotive manufacturers.
Because eventually, regardless about how much the president wants to stomp his foot, regardless of whether he happens to be a Republican or a Democrat, it makes no difference. Sooner or later, they will get into the United States. And that's why I'm trying to help out as many car companies as we possibly can, especially here in the US, because quite frankly, I do not believe we have the talent, the techniques, or even the will to try and take them on.
He ain't wrong.
I think I showed you guys a chart a long time ago, and somebody said, well, who do you think the biggest is going to be in 2030? And I said, probably BYD. I think that in North America, Tesla may take a fairly large chunk. It'll be a little less now, thank goodness, that Toyota fired Toyota and put in, I think Sako is his name, Sako-san.
Sato,
And
yeah.
yeah, and I met him a long, long time ago. He probably doesn't remember me, but I remember him. He's a smart guy, and he understands business, and he's also an engineer. So I think that he's going to make a big, big difference, and I believe he's going to spin the Toyota boat around.
Well, it is true. The previously incompetent captain of the Titanic being shit-canned is bullish for Toyota. It does improve their chances of survival. It remains to be seen whether this is too little, too late, and stick around, ladies and gentlemen, because we'll be covering some news out of Toyota that gives me some serious cause for concern despite this bullish news. So I take Sandy's point, he's right. Another example, if Mary B.S. Barra was instantly shit-canned from Government Motors and a competent CEO came in and took her place, they'd stand a better chance too. But whether or not they'd survive is still entirely up for debate.
And then, like, where I saw things falling off, like, I don't want to get into it, but VW and Toyota both, and then GM, simply because I just don't. Anyhow, let's just go on.
Now, I don't want to put words in Sandy Munro's mouth here, so I'm not sure what he was going to say and why he decided not to say what he was going to say about GM, aka Government Motors. But if it was me sharing my opinion on GM, I would have been directing all of my criticism solely toward their incompetent CEO, Mary B.S. Barra, who is not an automotive CEO. She's a fucking politician. But we'll never know what Sandy was going to say, so let's move on.
Okay, so if those three companies, so Toyota, Volkswagen, General Motors. So
Right.
are you suggesting that you think that Toyota has a better chance than the other two? I mean, and,
I know it
yesterday-
now. Oh, absolutely.
So, out of Volkswagen, Government Motors, and Toyota, Sandy Munro, very confident, adamant, in fact, that Toyota stands a much better chance of transitioning to EVs than Volkswagen or GM. Now, in fairness, GM, I mean, that's a no fucking brainer. Duh. There's no question, Mary B.S. Barra is the least competent legacy automotive CEO currently running a legacy automotive company, and it's no contest. It was a contest until Akio Toyoda was shit-canned, but now that he's no longer in charge of Toyota, there's only one worst automotive CEO, and it is truly a no contest. Regarding Volkswagen, this is interesting. Now, to be fair, Volkswagen are still going to struggle. In case you don't know, Volkswagen is the clusterfuck of all clusterfucks when it comes to their corporate structure. There are far too many people in this company who have a say. Too many layers of management. Too much bureaucracy. Too much red tape. Did you know that the German government owns a stake in VW? There are also certain families who just so happen to have large voting stakes in the company. It is an absolute fucking nightmare. So VW will struggle. Do not get me wrong. They're in big fucking trouble. But it's hard for me to know. It's definitely hard for me to have the same level of confidence Sandy does. That Toyota, far and away, stands a better chance of surviving than VW. I think in both cases, it's a coin toss at best. And just in case you guys don't know, Toyota and VW jostle for the world's largest automotive manufacturer spot. By units sold per year, give or take, peak volumes around 10-11 million vehicles sold in a single year. Absolute monsters. These are the two biggest automotive companies on earth today. The key differences: Toyota may be a little bit less bureaucratic, but they were going in the worst possible direction for a much longer period of time. VW, luckily, after the whole emissions cheating scandal, just so happened to have their hand forced toward electric vehicles. The irony of ironies. As executives f***ed the environment for profits and got caught, the company was forced to move in a direction that may actually save them from imminent bankruptcy. Unbelievable.
Are you
You know,
kidding?
yesterday the 193 billion bucks that VW said it's going to be spending on EVs. You think that is
Where are they going to get it? What are they going to
stakes?
sell next? They're going to have to sell Audi for sure. I mean, they got rid of Porsche. They're going to have to go and sell something else. What are they going to sell? And what are they going to sell? Or let me rephrase that. You know, what was it, last October or whatever, whenever they announced their new diesel engine. You know what? Sometimes you got to cut and run. And they didn't. So they're hoping for the underprivileged countries on this planet will still maintain the diesel and the gasoline and whatever, but they don't buy nearly as many cars as what Volkswagen is trying to sell. Volkswagen, I made a mistake. I predicted they were going to clobber everybody. I figured that the mistake with the Dieselgate and whatnot, that company would spin around, and with Dietz at the helm, right to the moon. But I don't see that happening anytime soon.
So remember Herbert Diess, the guy I was saying, hey, this guy gets it. VW might actually make it. But they're probably going to fire him because he keeps saying what needs to be said and doing what needs to be done, and they don't want to hear it. And then he got fired. You can't make this shit up.
A question for Sandy and Corey. You guys think Toyota's really going to do a restructuring of the company?
Oh, yeah.
I do.
No question about it.
If they're committed to a new path, they'll execute very quickly. And
So a couple of things. One, if they're committed to a new path, we'll talk more about this in a moment. Make sure you stick around because it's kind of important. They'll execute very quickly. We'll discuss the if in a moment, but regarding executing very quickly, I think that we need to make sure everyone understands they'll execute very quickly relative to other gigantic companies. It's not that easy to turn around a huge ship. The lead time between deciding to go all in on EVs and actually ramping up production of compelling, profitable EVs, best case scenario, even if you're moving as fast as possible, many years. Toyota should have been all in on EVs 10 years ago. Yet as recently as a few months ago, they were still publicly saying they were unsure whether or not consumers would want EVs, whether EVs were really a thing, and also proudly flaunting their pursuit of 4 independent propulsion strategies: internal combustion engine, hybrid, hydrogen fuel cell, and fully electric. It remains to be seen as to whether or not they've decided to pursue one of these, all in or not. And even if Toyota are to execute at lightning speed, in my opinion, it's going to take them the better part of half a decade before they're producing compelling, profitable EVs at scale. Oh, and then there's the whole software thing that Toyota do not have any competence in at all. The software being the most important thing. I really mean that, by the way. Just like the software on your smartphone is the most important thing. Sure, the hardware matters, needs decent battery life, needs a decent processor, but it is the software that unlocks the true capabilities of these things. Electric vehicles are computers on wheels. Toyota needs to become world-class at software and at manufacturing electric vehicles at scale profitably. Good fucking luck with that.
we've always been impressed with Toyota vehicles for decades. And they're not as far behind as you would think because they have so much expertise in the hybrid realm, particularly with the Prius and all the Prius variants. So when it comes to thermal systems, batteries, traction motors, that's all very scalable. So they're not starting from scratch. They just need to learn to scale up a full vehicle, full BEV, a full purpose-built BEV instead of what they currently have.
Yeah.
They'll be okay.
It certainly isn't a disadvantage to have some experience producing some hybrid vehicles, but as we've recently seen with Toyota's first attempt at a fully electric vehicle, the cat walked across the keyboard, I forget the exact name, BZXYFOAD or something like that. It's an absolute joke, there's been recalls, it's a piece of shit. So despite the experience making all of these hybrids, Toyota's first serious attempt at a fully electric vehicle is a massive, epic failure.
Yeah, I'm telling you, if you think back, the first Toyota I ever saw had a chain drive. I could not believe my eyes. Guy crawls underneath the car. Look at it, I bought a new car. And he says, it doesn't even have a prop shaft. And I looked up and I saw that and I said, good luck, Chumley. Well, it didn't take long before everybody was buying a Toyota. My dad, I'll never buy a Japanese car. Well, World War II kind of guys, they said things like that. But it wasn't long. It didn't take long before even the guy across the street who was dyed in the wool, I'm only buying a GM product, showed up with his Toyota saying, I love this car. It works really well and blah, blah. Toyota has a way of turning every adversity around. And like I said, I think that they're going to come along. I think Toyota, Honda, most of the Asian car companies are definitely in it to win it, whereas other guys are still arguing. Sandy,
Sandy, what car did you buy yesterday?
I didn't buy it. You did, but it was we bought a Kia and
Hyundai Ioniq 5.
Ioniq, yes. And so Sue drove it last night, and I couldn't film her because there were so many expletives. Here's the deal. When you put a car into the marketplace, into today's marketplace, and you're going to try and take over some part of the EV market share, and you don't have what everybody's used to, Okay, so you go in a Rivian, it's going to work just like the Tesla, and on and on and on. But if you don't have that, if you want to do push button start, push button stop, step on the brake, don't do this. Oh, this one doesn't have regen, and you're kissing the market goodbye. You have to be basically copying. This isn't a time to say, oh, we're going to set the standard. Don't do it. Don't set the standard, because you're going to lose.
So Sandy's right here. The best strategy is copy or perish. As in copy everything the market leader, Tesla, is doing. And what is Tesla doing better than anyone else? Again, software. These are computers on wheels. Tesla is doing software better than anyone else. Now, they're also doing a lot of other things better than anyone else. But most of those things don't necessarily touch the consumer. It's under the hood, so to speak. Tesla's making vehicles profitably. They've deleted lots of parts and processes. They thermally manage their batteries better than anyone else. Their batteries are more efficient. Their drivetrain is more efficient. This is stuff that a consumer won't necessarily notice. But from a business point of view, if you're not doing this stuff, you're not making money, you're losing money, you can't compete with Tesla. But that's not what matters most to consumers. What matters most to consumers is their experience. And the most important thing inside an electric vehicle is the software. And Toyota currently doesn't know shit about software. It's not as easy as telling Toyota to copy Tesla's homework. Oh, just copy their software. It's not that hard, right? It actually is. Tesla is a software company first, who just so happens to manufacture things that they run their software on. It's all good and well to say, yeah, just copy Tesla. But the actual process of copying Tesla's homework is a lot harder than it might seem.
The Ioniq is going to be a good car. I'm sure we're going to find lots of good things in it. And I'm sure that when I get a chance to drive it, because I've driven more electric cars than what Sue has, I'm sure I'll have a better view of it. But last night I was pooped. I got off the plane. She was driving. I'm not really interested in driving right now. I'll try it out maybe tonight or something. But I'm sure I will have a different opinion. But Sue, look at the buttons. Look at this. Look at this. How do I find that? And it's got buttons, and it's just totally overwhelming. That car needs to have a scrubbing. And when it gets scrubbed down to what, is going to be commonplace in the marketplace, it's going to save them a tremendous amount of money. Because remember, every button costs something. Every button has the potential for failure. Every button is 12 volts. Every button is mechanical, on and on and on. And that kills your efficiency. So every time you push a button, you're kissing away some of it. In fact, I gave a bunch of speeches when I was at this High Point University.
So it seems what Sandy Munro is suggesting here, copy Tesla, delete buttons and use software to do the same thing. Less buttons, there's less cost, less failure points, makes more sense, and a better user experience. So again, I go back to the point. Can Toyota become world class at software while they simultaneously learn for the first time how to profitably manufacture compelling electric vehicles at scale? I remain unconvinced. And now the latest from Toyota. New Toyota CEO Koji Sato will prioritize hydrogen even as company steps up EVs. I mean, there goes the hopes for Toyota surviving the transition to EVs. Why are they pursuing hydrogen as a viable strategy for propulsion? It makes no fucking sense. There will come a point in the distant future when we have an energy superabundance, where the entire world has transitioned to solar, battery storage, wind and hydro. We have so much fucking energy, we don't know what to do with it. Then it may make sense to use hydrogen to propel certain forms of transportation, including large ships and potentially planes. But the process of creating hydrogen for fuel is so fucking lossy, it is absolutely insane to think that this makes any sense until we have an absolute superabundance of energy. Yet, here we are. The new CEO of Toyota, who replaced an incompetent CEO, has just said out loud that they are prioritizing hydrogen. Now, call me crazy, but I think this is a mistake. In fact, I think Toyota should be all in on EVs and not prioritizing anything other than EVs. Let's read on. Now, I'm not sure if this has been run through a translator or just not very well edited, but excuse the typos and other issues here. We'll try and make do. Toyota's newly appointed CEO says hydrogen will be a top priority, even as Toyota redoubles their focus on electric vehicles. The key will be building out the infrastructure and expanding its use to other industries as Toyota partners with Kawasaki Heavy Industries and Iwatani. Toyota's newly appointed CEO says hydrogen will be a top priority of his carbon neutral strategy, even as he redoubles his focus on electric vehicles. Under his watch, through the end of the decade, the focus will be expanding the hydrogen infrastructure and the array of industries using the futuristic fuel, Sato said. Toyota is going to be investing a lot of time, energy, and money on hydrogen, including infrastructure. At the same time, they're urgently, desperately trying to transition to EVs. Talk about spreading oneself thin. Quote, "We want to ensure that hydrogen stays a viable option. But why?" Sato said March 18th on the sidelines of a weekend endurance race where Toyota has planned to field a hydrogen-powered race car. Quote, "We need a production and transport supply chain," Sato said. "Unless we see evolution there, we cannot expect a volume increase in the energy's use." So what Toyota are saying here is accurate. There needs to be a huge amount of innovation when it comes to hydrogen and an enormous amount of infrastructure, otherwise it won't be viable. Therefore, we're going to invest a huge amount of time, energy, and money attempting to develop this technology and create the infrastructure. At the same time, we should be urgently, desperately, single-mindedly focusing on nothing other than transitioning to EVs and surviving in the process. Sato, who takes over as CEO of Toyota on April 1st, not a joke, said last month after being named the top job that the world's biggest automaker, quote, "must drastically change the way it does business and adapt an EV-first mindset." So, I mean, he's kind of there, but here's how he should have said things. We should adapt an EV-only mindset. It still blows my fucking mind. It's 2023, March 2023, and these fucking dipshits are still intent on pursuing hydrogen. Why? Why spread yourself thin? I just don't understand. Are they that dumb? They haven't looked at the declining cost curves. A few years from now, EVs are going to be significantly cheaper than a comparable internal combustion engine vehicle, and they're way cheaper to own and operate and maintain already, and they're better for the environment. There is no place for hydrogen. It doesn't need to be done. Save that until Earth has so much energy we literally don't know what to do with it. Then we can waste an enormous amount creating hydrogen. But until that point, it makes no sense. EVs are going to work. They are working. What are they doing? The company is now developing a new dedicated EV platform for 2026. Just checking, what are we now? 23, 24, 25, 26. So 3-4 years, give or take, before they have a dedicated EV platform. 2026. Don't want to rain on anyone's parade here, but if it takes Toyota until 2026 to have a dedicated EV platform, they're f***ed. No other way to say it. They're just absolutely f***ed. This platform will supposedly deliver less costly, better performing EVs. Matter lost for words, really. What are they doing? Sato, who will succeed Akio Toyoda at the top of Toyota, signaled the new push when announcing his leadership team. Now look, maybe this is just being politically correct. They're going to pretend that they're pursuing hydrogen. Just quickly, just briefly, while Akio Toyoda gets and gets the f*** out of the company. Maybe 6 months later, Sato goes, you know what, we're not going to pursue hydrogen. That was a dumb idea. We're all in on EVs. Maybe that's going to happen. But I wouldn't get my hopes up. Toyota expects to sell 3.5 million electric vehicles globally in 2030. This is the same Toyota who today sells close to 11 million vehicles in total per year. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am here to tell you today, if Toyota is successful in selling 3.5 million electric vehicles globally in 2030, that will be the entire sum of every vehicle they sell in 2030. There is no market for ICE vehicles, and there will be no market for hybrids, and there will be no market for hydrogen. But Toyota doesn't realize this. My best guess is they're expecting 1/3 of their vehicles to be hydrogen, 1/3 to be electric, and 1/3 to be, I don't know, ICE? Maybe hybrids? It's just not going to end well. F*** this website, f***ing dickheads. What is this pop-up? Get f***ed, mate. In contrast to the emboldened ramp-up on the full electric front, Toyota has been more circumspect in talking about hydrogen. The company that helped pioneer full cell technology doesn't even have a concrete sales target. Sato declined to offer one, even as Toyota hosted a media event to tout hydrogen's potential. Quote, "We don't have a very specific business goal at this time," Sato said. Fuck, dude. It was only a couple of days ago I said everyone who doesn't have written goals watching this channel is a dumb motherfucker, and we have a CEO of a fucking automotive company that doesn't have a fucking goal. Call me crazy, but I think it's kind of important to have a tangible goal. Even if you don't reach it, at least know what you're aiming for. This is the blind leading the blind. When Toyota released their second generation full cell sedan in 2020, the company was so confident in the future was so confident in future demand for the technology that it ramped up full cell production capacity to 30,000 units a year, a 10-fold increase over its previous generation stack. But to date, it has only sold 21,700 of the first and second generation since sales began December 2014. A decade ago, they've sold about 2,000 a year for the last decade, and they were expecting 30,000 a year. That's awkward. Maybe hydrogen wasn't the best idea after all. The Japanese government has announced a target of having 200 full cell vehicles on the country's roads by 2025 and 800,000 by 2030. Today, Toyota says there are about 160 hydrogen filling stations in Japan. That is forecast to climb to 320 in 2025 and 900 in 2030. Hydrogen will play a critical role in Toyota's brain-dead, multi-pronged approach to achieving carbon neutrality. The strategy that leverages full EVs, hybrids, and hydrogen technologies. Quote, "We are making full-fledged efforts on everything," This is not going to age well. This is brain damage manifest. They need to be all in on EVs, 100% focused on one propulsion technology, the clear winner. Let me ask a question. How is it possible to put 100% effort into 3 separate technologies? It's not. At best, you can do 33 and a third percent per each. That's it. That's how things work. This statement is contradictory. You cannot make a full-fledged effort on multiple things. You just can't. They're spreading themselves too thin. The best they can do is make a half-assed attempt at each of these things. And that's exactly what we're going to get. When will they wake up, if at all? It is important to remain flexible in order to tailor products and energies to different carbon neutral needs in different markets. Now, why are these fucking morons talking about carbon neutral, okay? Oh, that's right, because they think the only reason they should make electric vehicles and hydrogen vehicles and hybrids and full cell is because of carbon neutrality, not because they're a commercial inevitability. Dipshits. I just can't believe the level of potato here. Toyota today are making these vehicles not because they're a commercial inevitability, they're superior on everything. I just can't even. I don't have the words. I mean, the brain damage is real. Imagine thinking that the reason you would make these vehicles, electric vehicles, hybrids, hydrogen fuel cells, is to reduce carbon emissions, not because these are disruptive, EVs in particular. They're a commercial inevitability. They're superior on everything that matters. I mean, literally. The rollover risk is much lower in an EV because the battery pan is on the floor, low center of gravity. The risk of injury in a collision is exceptionally low versus an ICE vehicle because you have 3 times the crumple zone in the front of the vehicle. Because instead of having a gigantic fucking engine between you and the collision, you have a gigantic crumple zone. There's no engine. They have better performance by default. They're better for the environment by default. They're cheaper to own and operate by default. They're cheaper to refuel/recharge by default. They are a commercial inevitability. This isn't about the environment. They're happening, irrespective. Yet Toyota foolishly seem to think that the reason people are buying and wanting these things is for environmental reasons. They make up the vast minority of people buying electric vehicles today. Sato said it was especially crucial to bring more partners to the table to build out a network of companies manufacturing, delivering, and using hydrogen. If I didn't know any better, I'd suggest there might be a perverse incentive somewhere here. Are Toyota attempting to appease the Japanese government who want hydrogen? I can't really see another reason why they'd be so stupid and so blind. Why are they pursuing this unproven technology that makes no fucking sense? I mean, if you understand physics, you understand the amount of energy lost in creating hydrogen to actually use in a fuel cell. It's so crazy. If battery electric vehicles weren't viable, different story, but they are. So what's going on? To underscore the point, Sato was joined on stage at the weekend race event by the president of Kawasaki Heavy Industries, the maker of liquid hydrogen carrier ships, and Iwatani Corp, a Japanese company that manufactures hydrogen and operates fueling networks. Sorry about the English here. Trying to read my best. Toyota had planned to show off a new GR Corolla race car running on liquefied hydrogen at the weekend's 5-hour endurance race at Suzuka Circuit in Western Japan. But earlier this month, the car caught fire during a test run because of a leak in a hydrogen fuel line. Don't worry about that. Not like anything could go wrong there. The car's debut was scuttled and it was replaced on the grid by gasoline-burning Toyota GR Yaris. Despite Toyota's efforts to test and develop hydrogen combustion in race cars, Kawasaki Heavy president said he envisions the technology making its biggest impact in heavy trucks, buses, construction equipment, trains, aircraft, and stationary power generators. Now, if successful, this would be true. Keywords, if successful. So, a few questions. Will Toyota ever sell more than 10 million vehicles in a single year? Again, answer, no. If anyone wants to put a gigantic wager on that, send me a DM. I'm up for it. There's no chance, 0 chance that Toyota will ever sell more than 10 million units in a single year, ever again, period. As I mentioned recently, the reason I know this is because I have a time machine. It's called a brain. I use my brain to go into the future, and that's what I saw. The bigger question is, will they survive at all? And I really think best case scenario, no more than a 50% chance. But in either case, if Toyota is successful and does sell 3.5 million electric vehicles in 2030, and those 3.5 million vehicles are approximately the total number of vehicles Toyota sells in that year of any propulsion, that in my mind is no better than a bankruptcy. I think Sandy and Corey are massively underestimating how difficult it will be to turn around the ship that is Toyota, and more important than that, not considering how truly difficult it will be for Toyota to master software, an essential ingredient in surviving the transition to EVs. My best guess is that Toyota's annual vehicle volumes are going to plunge off a cliff and eventually flatline. If they can survive, they'll remain at a fairly steady level. And if they don't survive, well, they won't be selling any vehicles at all, will they? Now, in fairness, I think Nokia and Motorola still do sell cellular phones. Do they? I don't know. I mean, I think they do. But both companies are currently irrelevant blips. I think that's the best case outcome for Toyota. In my opinion, anything short of 10 million electric vehicles sold in a single year around 2030, and Toyota will have failed. The question isn't, will Toyota succeed? It's how poorly, how seriously, and how severely will Toyota fail? Do they go completely bankrupt, or do they somehow manage to crawl into next decade a shadow of their former selves, selling a fraction of the vehicles then as they do today. And to be fair, it's not just Toyota who's fucked. I think the vast majority of legacy automotive manufacturers will not make it. Only time will tell. And while Toyota continues to embarrass themselves and really struggles to see the future, the writing on the wall, the obvious path, there is still a glimmer of hope that they might just make it. The first step, however, to making it is realizing what they need to be doing. And until that happens, their future does not look bright. In fact, they may not even have a future at all. Will Toyota ever wake up? Will they ever take the hint? And will they ever do what they need to not only survive, but to thrive? I wish I knew the answer. And speaking of taking the hint, surviving and thriving, cue world's smoothest ever segue. I think it's time, dear viewer, that you finally took the hint and gave Athletic Greens AG1 a try. Something I've been taking daily now for almost 2 years, and I've never felt better. If you want to give yourself the best chance to thrive, not just survive, Athletic Greens AG1 is an absolute no-brainer. It's a great way to fill in nutritional gaps with 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, adaptogens, and digestive enzymes to have you feeling, performing, and recovering your best. There's a 90-day money-back guarantee, and you'll get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 and K2 by heading to athleticgreens.com/SMR or using the link in the pinned comment. If Toyota had taken the hint years ago when people were screaming from the rooftops, "Hey morons, EVs are the future, you might want to go all in," maybe they would have had a better chance of surviving. And if you take the hint and make Athletic Greens AG1 part of your daily routine, I'm extremely confident that you'll be feeling and performing your best. And if not, that's what the 90-day money-back guarantee is for. But don't take my word for it. Here's another testimonial from a viewer of this channel. I'm on day 8 of Athletic Greens AG1. Here's how it's going for me. First, let me mention I didn't think I'd start feeling anything until after a few weeks, if ever, but the effects kicked in after 3 to 4 days for me. Number 1, decreased anxiety. I'm a naturally anxious and neurotic person, so I really need this. This might be from the ashwagandha, possibly, but whatever it is, I'm really happy with how I'm feeling. My social anxiety is lower than it's ever been. I think just lower levels of stress and cortisol in general. He may be onto something here. After all, adaptogens are no joke. 2, overflowing energy. I think I'm working out about 3 to 4 times more than before. Sometimes I feel that my body is overflowing with energy and I need to expend it. Makes 2 of us. As I've mentioned a million times, the biggest effect I've personally felt from Athletic Greens AG1 is a massive, sustained boost in energy. I've been going to the gym almost every day, running, went swimming a few times. This is highly abnormal for me. I do not believe I'm being placeboed. My body is definitely behaving differently. P.S. I think they put crack in this stuff. Or maybe it's just those adaptogens. Well, I don't think crack is on the ingredients list, but you never know. Maybe the latest blend does have some amphetamines that I'm unaware of. I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, the boost in energy is pretty universal. Most people who start taking Athletic Greens AG1, unless their body is in such a trash state that they can't even notice an improvement in energy, same story every time. I've got more energy, I feel better. And I can completely relate to this. I have more energy. And I'm expending that. I'm doing more work. I'm working out more. I'm more active. I have a more active social life. Everything that flows from having more energy. I'm able to get on top of tasks instead of delaying and procrastinating. I'm getting shit done. So I completely and utterly relate to this commenter. If there's anyone watching who already has too much energy, then obviously don't bother. But if you could do with a bit more energy and everything that flows from that, like getting shit done, working out more often, and being more active, now's the time. Head to athleticgreens.com/SMR or click the link in the pinned comment. Start your daily health habit with Athletic Greens AG1 now. I can't speak to the anxiety. It's not something I've ever personally suffered from. But let me know in the comments below if there's anybody who's started taking Athletic Greens AG1 who's also experienced a reduction in anxiety. I'd be very curious to know if this is an effect that other people are experiencing as well. So, you know where to find it, athleticgreens.com/SMR or click the link in the pinned comment. And lastly, don't forget, head over to Patreon. Dropped another exclusive video today about some incredible moves Ford's making in the EV space. They, unlike VW, Toyota, and GM, are probably going to make it. If you're not a member of Patreon, you can join with the card in the corner or the link in the pinned comment, and I'll see you over there. Love ya.